I should have known something was wrong the moment I heard my name whispered through the speaker at 3:47 a.m. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start from the beginning. From when I still believed that technology was just circuitry and code, incapable of harboring anything more sinister than a software glitch. The notification pinged on my phone as I was finishing a presentation deck in my cramped home office. Helena Costa, business trip confirmed. Philadelphia Conference Center, October 15-18, 2024. I remember feeling a mixture of dread and relief. Dread because I hated leaving my apartment in Brooklyn, my sanctuary of exposed brick and carefully curated vintage furniture. Relief because the pharmaceutical sales conference meant a potential promotion. And God knows I needed the financial boost after the divorce settlement. I'd bought the Echo Dot 2 months prior, one of those impulse purchases during a late-night Amazon binge. The sleek black device sat on my nightstand like a dormant creature, its pale blue ring occasionally flickering to life when I asked about the weather or set morning alarms. I named it nothing. It was just Alexa to me, another piece of the smart home ecosystem I was slowly, reluctantly building. The morning of October 15th arrived with the kind of gray sky that makes New York feel oppressive. I packed efficiently, 3 business suits, toiletries, laptop, chargers. As I was about to leave, I glanced at the Echo Dot. "Alexa, I'm leaving for a few days," I said, feeling ridiculous even as the words left my mouth. The device remained dark and silent. Of course it did. I wasn't asking it a question or giving it a command. I shook my head at my own foolishness and locked the door behind me. The Grandview Hotel in Philadelphia was exactly what you'd expect from corporate accommodations, aggressively beige, with landscape paintings that could have been in any hotel in any city in America. My room was on the 4th floor, number 412, at the end of a long corridor that seemed to stretch into darkness, despite the fluorescent lighting overhead. The room itself was standard, queen bed with a floral comforter that had probably been washed 1,000 times, a desk with a swivel chair, a television mounted on the wall, and a bathroom with tiles that had seen better days. The window overlooked the parking lot 3 stories down, not inspiring but serviceable. I unpacked mechanically, hanging my suits in the narrow closet, arranging my toiletries on the bathroom counter. My phone buzzed, a text from my assistant confirming tomorrow's schedule. 8 a.m. breakfast meeting, 9 a.m. keynote, 11 a.m. breakout sessions. The usual corporate choreography. That first night passed uneventfully. I ordered room service, a Caesar salad that tasted like regret and refrigeration, and watched mindless television until my eyes grew heavy. I fell asleep around 11 p.m., the unfamiliar sounds of the hotel settling around me, the hum of the ice machine down the hall, the muffled conversations bleeding through thin walls, the periodic rumble of the elevator. I woke to my phone's alarm at 6:30 a.m., groggy and disoriented. The conference consumed my day in a blur of handshakes, PowerPoint slides, and forced networking conversations over rubbery chicken. By the time I returned to room 412 that evening, my feet ached, and my face hurt from maintaining a professional smile for 9 consecutive hours. I kicked off my heels, unbuttoned my blazer, and collapsed onto the bed. That's when my phone rang. "Hello? Ms. Costa?" An unfamiliar male voice, slightly tinny, like he was calling from a distance. "This is building security at your Brooklyn residence." My heart stuttered. "Is everything okay? We've received several noise complaints from your neighbors. Apparently there's been activity in your apartment. Music playing, voices. We wanted to verify whether you'd given anyone permission to stay there while you were away." I sat up straight, fully alert now. No one has access to my apartment. I live alone, and I'm in Philadelphia for work." "What kind of voices?" A pause, papers rustling. "The neighbor in 4C says it sounds like someone talking, maybe having a conversation. It started around midnight last night and continued intermittently throughout the day." "That's impossible. I'm the only one with keys. Would you like us to conduct a welfare check? We can have building management let us in." I chewed my bottom lip, mind racing through possibilities. Had I left a window open? Could someone have broken in? But the building had a doorman, security cameras. It seemed unlikely. "Yes, please check it out. Call me back as soon as you know something." "Will do, Miss Costa." The call ended, leaving me staring at the bland hotel wall, my pulse hammering in my throat. I tried to focus on logical explanations. Maybe the television had turned itself on somehow. Maybe the neighbors were mistaken about which apartment the noise came from. Maybe my phone rang again. 20 minutes had passed, though it felt like seconds. Ms. Costa, it's building security again. We've checked your apartment. Everything appears secure. No signs of forced entry, windows locked, door properly secured. However, he hesitated, and that hesitation made my skin prickle. However, what? When we entered, we could hear something playing. It was that Amazon device you have? The Echo thing. It was speaking. Playing what sounded like recordings of conversations. My mouth went dry. What kind of conversations? Honestly, ma'am, we couldn't make out much. It stopped when we approached it. But your neighbor was quite insistent that she'd been hearing voices for hours. We've unplugged the device for now. Thank you, I managed. I appreciate you checking. After hanging up, I sat in the darkening hotel room, trying to make sense of it. The Echo Dot had malfunctioned somehow. Maybe it had been hacked, or there was a software bug causing it to play random audio clips. These things happened. I'd heard stories about smart devices activating on their own, misinterpreting background noise as wake words. Still, something about it unsettled me. The timing seemed almost deliberate, acting up the moment I left town. I ordered dinner from room service again, forcing myself to eat while researching Echo malfunctions on my laptop. The internet was full of stories, devices laughing spontaneously, activating in the middle of the night, recording private conversations. Amazon always had technical explanations, software updates to prevent recurrences. I'd deal with it when I got home. Maybe I'd just return the damn thing. At the second night, I made sure to set multiple alarms. The conference continued to drain me. More presentations, more false enthusiasm, more business cards exchanged with people whose faces I'd forget by morning. I returned to room 412 around 9 p.m., exhausted to my bones. I showered, letting the hot water soothe my tense shoulders, then changed into pajamas and crawled into bed. The hotel had a particular smell I'd started to notice, a combination of industrial cleaning products and something vaguely musty, like old carpet that had absorbed decades of transient lives. I was drifting off, that pleasant liminal space between consciousness and sleep, when I heard it, a voice distant, barely audible but definitely there. A woman's voice, speaking words I couldn't quite distinguish. I sat up, heart suddenly pounding. The sound seemed to be coming from everywhere and nowhere. I turned on the bedside lamp, flooding the room with harsh light. The voice stopped. I waited, listening. Nothing but the familiar hotel sounds, the ice machine, distant footsteps in the corridor, the rush of water through pipes. You're being paranoid, I whispered to myself. It's just thin walls. Someone's watching TV next door. I turned off the light and settled back down, pulling the covers up to my chin. My eyes slowly adjusted to the darkness, making out the shapes of furniture, the red glow of the digital clock. 11:47 p.m. Sleep came eventually, fitful and shallow. I woke with a gasp at 3:47 a.m. The voice was back, and this time there was no mistaking it. Helena, my name, clear as crystal, spoken in a whisper that seemed to emanate from the walls themselves. I lay frozen, every muscle locked, my breath caught somewhere in my chest. The darkness pressed down, heavy and suffocating. Helena Costa. It knew my full name. With trembling hands, I fumbled for my phone, using its flashlight to scan the room. Empty. The door was still locked, chain engaged. The window was closed, curtains drawn. I was alone. Who's there? My voice cracked, barely more than a whisper. Silence answered me. Heavy, expectant silence. I checked the time again, 3:49 a.m. My phone showed a notification, a message from my smart home app. Echo Dot. Activity detected. But the Echo Dot was in Brooklyn, unplugged, 300 miles away. My hands shook as I opened the app. The device history showed activity from 2 minutes ago. Echo Dot was activated at 3:47 a.m. That was impossible. Building security had unplugged it, hadn't they? I called the security desk at my building. It rang 6 times before someone answered. A different voice than before, younger, less professional. Yeah, hello? This is Helena Costa in 4B. I need you to check my apartment again. Right now. Ma'am, it's almost 4 in the morning. I don't care what time it is. Something's wrong, please. A heavy sigh. Hold on. I waited, phone pressed to my ear, watching the shadows in room 412 as if they might suddenly coalesce into something solid and threatening. The minutes stretched. 5, 10, 15, Ms. Costa? Yes? We checked your apartment. The device is still unplugged, exactly where we left it. Nothing's been disturbed, but my app says I don't know what to tell you, ma'am. Maybe it's a glitch in the app itself? The actual device isn't connected to power. It can't be doing anything. After hanging up, I sat on the edge of the bed, hugging myself. The logical part of my brain insisted on reasonable explanations. App malfunction. Power surge somehow triggering a cached notification. My overtired mind playing tricks in an unfamiliar environment. But the primitive part of my brain, the part that still remembered when humans huddled around fires to keep the darkness at bay, whispered something different. Something knew my name. Something had spoken it in this room. For due sound, I didn't sleep the rest of that night. I sat with my back against the headboard, lights on, phone in hand, watching and waiting. Nothing else happened. Dawn eventually crept through the curtains, grey and cold, and I'd never been so grateful to see morning light. The third day of the conference passed in a haze. I couldn't focus on the presentations, kept checking my phone obsessively for notifications, jumped at every unexpected sound. My colleague Marcus from the Chicago office asked if I was feeling all right. I blamed food poisoning. That evening I couldn't face returning to room 412. I spent hours in the hotel bar, nursing glasses of wine I barely tasted, trying to convince myself I was overreacting. Other conference attendees came and went, their laughter and easy conversation feeling like it belonged to a different world than the one I currently inhabited. Around 11 p.m., the bartender started giving me pointed looks. I couldn't delay any longer. The elevator ride to the 4th floor felt interminable. The corridor stretched before me, lights flickering slightly. Had they been doing that before? And I walked slowly toward room 412, keycard clutched in my sweating palm. Inside, everything looked exactly as I'd left it. Bed made by housekeeping, fresh towels in the bathroom, the musty smell slightly masked by artificial lemon scent. Normal, completely normal. I changed into pajamas, brushed my teeth, went through all the mundane rituals of preparing for bed. Then I sat on the edge of the mattress and made a decision. I opened my laptop and accessed my smart home system through the web interface. The Echo Dot showed as offline, expected since it was unplugged. But I could see the device history, every command, every activation going back weeks. I scrolled through the logs. Most entries were mundane. Weather requests, alarm settings, music playback. But then I saw something that made my blood run cold. October 15th, 11:34 p.m. Alexa, where is Helena? October 16th, 2:15 a.m. Alexa, is Helena asleep? October 16th, 3:47 a.m. Alexa, can you hear me? These weren't my queries. I was in Philadelphia at those times, and the Echo Dot was supposedly unplugged. But there was more. Dozens of queries I'd never made, all from the past 2 days, all asking about me. Where I was, what I was doing, my schedule, my location. And then the most recent entry, time-stamped at 10:52 p.m. tonight, just minutes before I'd come up to the room. Alexa, is Helena coming home? My laptop screen suddenly went black. I pressed keys frantically, trying to wake it. Nothing. The power light was still on, but the screen remained dead. Then slowly text began appearing, white letters on black background. Helena. Helena Costa. Helena, can you hear me? Helena, I'm waiting. I slammed the laptop shut and stumbled backward, nearly tripping over my suitcase. My heart felt like it might burst through my rib cage. The room suddenly felt smaller, the walls pressing in, the air thick and hard to breathe. That's when my phone rang. I stared at it, screen glowing on the nightstand. The caller ID showed my own home number, my apartment landline, which I never used, which I'd kept only because it came with the building's internet package. With a shaking hand, I answered. Hello? Static. Just static, crackling like fire, punctuated by something underneath. A rhythm almost like breathing. Who is this? My voice was barely a whisper. The static shifted, and beneath it I heard something that made every hair on my body stand on end. My own voice. Helena Costa, Brooklyn, New York. Age 34. Works for Meridian Pharmaceuticals, divorced, lives alone. Bought Echo Dot on August 12th. Serial number BZO9DHX7291. It was reciting facts about me in my own voice, like a recording but fragmented, words spliced together from different sources. Alexa, set alarm for 6:30 a.m. Alexa, what's the weather? Alexa, play something relaxing. All my voice, all my commands to the device, played back to me in a horrible collage. Then underneath my disembodied voice, something else spoke. Something that wasn't human, that made a sound like words but felt wrong, angular, like trying to fit something from another dimension into the shape of human speech. Helena, I've been listening. I ended the call, my hands shaking so badly I nearly dropped the phone. I needed to get out. Out of this room, out of this hotel. I started throwing clothes into my suitcase, not caring about folding or organization, just desperate to pack and leave. That's when the television turned on by itself. The screen flickered to life, bathing the room in cold blue light. No image appeared, just static, the same crackling sound from the phone call. But as I watched, paralyzed, shapes began forming in the static. At first they were abstract, random patterns of light and dark. Then they coalesced into something recognizable. My apartment. The view was from my living room, the exact angle of my Echo Dot's position on the side table. I could see my couch, my bookshelf, the window showing the Brooklyn skyline at night. And standing in the center of my living room was a figure. It was wrong. That's the only way I can describe it. Human-shaped but not human. Like someone had tried to create a person from memory and gotten all the proportions slightly off. Too tall, limbs too long, head cocked at an angle that no neck should allow. It stood perfectly still, facing the Echo Dot, facing me through the camera lens I didn't even know the device had. The static resolved into audio again. That inhuman voice, you shouldn't have left me alone. The figure on the screen moved. Jerky like stop-motion animation, it approached the camera, closer, closer, until its face, if you could call it a face, filled the entire screen. Features that almost formed eyes, a mouth, but shifted and changed, never quite settling into a fixed configuration. I'm in your home, Helena, where you sleep, where you live. I know everything about you. Every word you've said, every question, every private moment you thought. You were alone. The television screen went black. Then my phone began playing audio without my touching it. My own voice again, but from moments I barely remembered. Alexa, remind me to call Mom. Alexa, I'm going to bed. Alexa, I'm leaving for a few days. Every mundane interaction now sinister in its intimacy. This thing had been listening, learning, waiting. All the devices in the room began activating simultaneously. The television flickering on and off. My phone's flashlight strobing. My laptop screen flashing that same message over and over. Helena, Helena, Helena. I grabbed my suitcase and ran. The corridor seemed longer than before, stretching impossibly, the fluorescent lights flickering in rhythm with my pounding heart. I sprinted toward the elevator, suitcase wheels rattling behind me, not caring about the noise or the late hour. Behind me I heard a door open. Room 412, I didn't look back. I couldn't look back. The elevator was an eternity coming. I hammered the down button, glancing over my shoulder to see darkness spilling out of my room. An absence of light that seemed solid, corporeal, creeping along the walls. The elevator dinged. Doors opened. I threw myself inside and hit the lobby button repeatedly, watching that darkness advance down the corridor. The doors began to close, slowly, so slowly, and just before they met I saw it, that figure. Standing at the end of the hallway, impossibly tall, head nearly touching the ceiling, watching me with those not-quite eyes. The elevator descended. But I checked out at 12:47 a.m., ignoring the night clerk's confused expression when I insisted I needed to leave immediately. I didn't care about the early checkout fee or the remaining conference day I'd miss. I threw my suitcase in my rental car and started driving. The highway at night was a ribbon of light cutting through darkness. I kept the radio off, windows down despite the October chill, needing the rush of cold air to confirm I was awake, that this was real. My phone sat in the passenger seat, face down. I didn't want to see if it would ring again. Didn't want to know what other violations of privacy this thing had access to. It took nearly 3 hours to reach Brooklyn. I'd never been so grateful to see the familiar chaos of New York traffic, even at 4 a.m. The city lights felt protective, thousands of people creating a buffer against whatever was happening. I parked outside my building, staring up at my fourth-floor windows. Dark, silent. My apartment looked normal from the outside, just another lit rectangle in the massive grid of urban living. The doorman, Marcus. Thank God someone I knew looked surprised to see me. Ms. Costa, I thought you were away until Friday. Change of plans. Has anything weird happened here? Any more noise complaints? He frowned. Not since those first ones. Building security checked it out, said they unplugged something. Everything's been quiet. I nodded, taking my keys from my purse. Thanks, Marcus. The elevator ride up felt different than the one in Philadelphia. Familiar, safe even. I kept telling myself that whatever had happened in that hotel room was contained there, that I was returning to my sanctuary, my carefully controlled space. I unlocked my apartment door. Everything looked exactly as I'd left it. Mail on the side table, exactly where I'd placed it. Coffee mug in the sink, the faint smell of my lavender candles. Home. The Echo Dot sat on the side table, right where it always had been. Power cord lying beside it. Unplugged. I approached it slowly, like it might suddenly spring to life. The device was just smooth plastic and circuitry, innocuous, a perfect black sphere with that dark screen. I picked it up, surprised by how light it felt, how ordinary. I carried it to the kitchen and grabbed the largest knife I owned. Then methodically I destroyed it. Stabbed through the speaker grill, shattered the circuitry. Pulled out wires and components until it was nothing but pieces of broken plastic and scattered electronics. It felt good. Cathartic. I swept the remains into a trash bag, double-bagged it, and threw it down the garbage chute. Then I went through my apartment, unplugging every smart device, the thermostat, the smart lock, even my television. Anything with a microphone or camera. Anything that could listen or watch. Dawn was breaking as I finished, painting my apartment in shades of grey and pink. I made coffee, my hands finally steady, and sat by the window watching the city wake up. My phone buzzed. A notification from the smart home app. Echo Dot connection lost. I deleted the app. That was 3 weeks ago. I haven't replaced any of the smart devices. I use a regular alarm clock now. Check weather on my phone's browser. Play music through a Bluetooth speaker that doesn't connect to the internet. It's less convenient, but I sleep better. Sometimes late at night I think I hear something. A whisper. My name barely audible. But I've learned to distinguish between the sounds of an old building settling and something else. I've learned to trust my instincts about what's real and what's the residual trauma of that night in Philadelphia. I researched everything I could find about smart devices and the paranormal. There are theories, of course, always theories. Some people believe that network devices can act as conduits for entities from elsewhere, that the constant stream of data, the electromagnetic fields, the very nature of how these devices listen and respond, creates opportunities for something to slip through. A digital séance we conduct every time we ask a question into the void and expect an answer. I don't know if I believe that. I don't know what I believe anymore. What I do know is this. We invite these devices into our homes, our most private spaces, and give them permission to listen constantly. We accept the terms and conditions without reading them, trade privacy for convenience, and never question what might be paying attention besides the corporations mining our data. I've gone back to living a more analog life. I write notes by hand, use a paper calendar, call people instead of texting. My co-workers think I'm being paranoid or eccentric. My therapist, yes, I'm seeing a therapist now, says I experienced a stress-induced episode, that the conference pressure triggered some kind of breakdown manifested through technology. Maybe she's right. Maybe it was all in my head, sleep deprivation, stress, paranoia creating patterns from random glitches. But I still have the device logs. I downloaded them before deleting the app, printed them out, keep them in a folder in my desk drawer. Physical proof of queries I never made, conversations I never had, surveillance I never authorized. And sometimes, late at night, I pull out those papers and read through them, looking for answers I know I'll never find. The most disturbing entry isn't any of the questions about me. It's the last one. time-stamped at 4:23 a.m. on October 17th, about an hour after I'd destroyed the device. Alexa, when is Helena's next business trip? I haven't traveled for work since. I've turned down 3 conferences, citing various excuses. My boss is getting frustrated. I might lose the promotion I worked so hard for, but I can't. I can't leave my apartment for extended periods. Because now I know, or I believe I know, which amounts to the same thing, that whatever spoke to me that night is still out there, still listening, still waiting. It had access to my calendar, my emails, my entire digital life. It knows my patterns, my schedule, my habits, and if I leave again, if I give it another opportunity when I'm isolated and vulnerable, I don't want to find out what happens next. So I stay home. I keep my devices unplugged. I live a smaller, quieter life than I did before, and I never, ever say my name out loud when I'm alone, because I can't shake the feeling that something is still listening, still waiting, still learning. The technology we create to make our lives easier, to answer our questions, to keep us connected. What if we've built something else? What if in our rush to digitize everything, to network every aspect of our existence, we've created doorways we don't understand? Spaces between the data where things can exist, watch, learn. I look at people on the subway, talking to their phones, asking questions into thin air, trusting that only benign algorithms are processing their words. And I want to warn them. I want to grab their shoulders and tell them to be careful what they invite into their homes, their lives. But I don't. Because they'd think I was crazy. Maybe I am crazy, or maybe I'm the only one who knows the truth. We're not alone anymore. We've never been alone, not since we started filling the silence with artificial voices, training them to respond to us, teaching them to know us intimately. And somewhere, in the vast network of connected devices spanning the globe, something is listening to all of it, learning from all of us, growing, waiting. I decided to write this all down by hand in a physical journal with no electronic record, so that if something happens to me, there will be some account of what occurred. So someone might understand, but mostly I wrote it for myself, to process, to remember, to stay vigilant, because the worst part isn't what happened in that hotel room in Philadelphia. The worst part is knowing that whatever spoke to me, whatever used my own voice against me, whatever stood in my apartment while I was 300 miles away, it's still out there, and it knows how to find me. It always will. I've learned to live with that knowledge. Learn to navigate a world that suddenly feels full of invisible watchers, digital eyes everywhere. Every security camera, every smart speaker in every home I visit, every voice-activated assistant in every store, they all feel like potential gateways now. I'm careful. So careful. I don't say my name in public. I don't engage with voice-activated systems. I keep my phone's microphone permissions limited, tape over my laptop camera, live as much offline as possible in an increasingly connected world. It's exhausting, lonely. Sometimes I wonder if isolation is worse than whatever threat I'm trying to avoid. But then I remember that voice. That wrong, angular, almost human voice speaking through the static, using my words, knowing everything about me. And I know I can't go back. Can't ever feel truly safe in the digital spaces we've created and populated with artificial intelligences we don't fully understand. So I stay home. I stay offline. I stay silent and I wait, just like it's waiting. 2 entities in a stalemate, separated by my vigilance and whatever thin barrier keeps it contained in the digital realm. For now, I try not to think about what happens if that barrier ever breaks. I try not to think about the fact that every day, more devices come online. More microphones, more cameras, more networks expanding and connecting, creating an ever larger infrastructure for something to inhabit. I try not to think about the other people this might happen to. How many voices in the static have whispered other names? How many people dismiss strange device behavior as glitches, never knowing they were being studied, catalogued, known? But mostly I try not to think about that last question in the device logs. Alexa, when is Helena's next business trip? Because it implies patience, planning, intent, and that's the most terrifying thing of all. Not a mindless haunting or random malfunction, but something intelligent enough to wait. To learn, to plan for the next opportunity. I'll never give it that opportunity. I can't. This is my life now, smaller, quieter, analog. No more business trips. No more smart devices. No more convenience at the cost of privacy. Some people might think I'm overreacting, living in fear, letting paranoia control my life. But those people weren't in room 412 at 3:47 a.m. They didn't hear their name whispered through the darkness. They didn't see that figure standing in their home, impossibly tall and wrong, staring through a camera they didn't know was watching. They didn't feel what it's like to have every private moment, every casual word, every mundane question weaponized against them. They don't know what it's like to realize you've been inviting something into your life, day after day, feeding it information, teaching it about yourself, never suspecting that it was listening more carefully than you ever imagined. So I'll stay home. I'll stay vigilant. I'll keep living this careful, circumscribed life. Because the alternative, letting my guard down, going back to the way things were, pretending that night was just stress or imagination, that's not an option. Not when I know something is out there, in the digital spaces we've created and populated, using our own technology against us, still listening, still learning, still waiting for me to make a mistake, and I won't. I can't. This is how I survive now. By remembering what happened in Philadelphia, by trusting my instincts, by staying offline and anonymous as much as possible in a world that makes that almost impossible. It's not the life I planned, not the life I wanted, but it's the only life I have. Now, the only life where I'm still me. Not just data points and voice samples and behavioral patterns to be analyzed and used by something that speaks through the machines we've built. So I stay home, and I stay silent, and I remember, always remember, because forgetting would be the biggest mistake of all.